Welcome to TIA Now's special edition. I'm Limor Schaffman, Director of Content Development here at TIA. Joining me in the studio today are Adarsh Radia, he's co-founder of Global Actionable Innovation, and also Luis Garma, he is Executive President of Delaware Group. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Limor. Yep.
So why don't we give it a sense to the audience of what you do? What are your organizations all about?
Great, should I start?
Please do.
Well, good morning again. Thank you for having us. Global Actionable Innovation is an innovation platform that tries to address some of the inefficiencies in the technology space or innovation space nowadays. What myself and my co-founder Ignacio identified, having been entrepreneurs and working on startups for a number of years, is that there's a lot of resource and support at an early stage of a startup's life cycle. But very much after that, in terms of their own responsibilities for trying to scale their businesses, there's a lack of business development support. And on the flip side, you have lots of large enterprise that, by the very definition of how they're organized, find it very difficult to innovate themselves. They're at risk of challenging their own business models. There's lots of regulation and such like. So really what Global Actionable Innovation was formed as was a platform to try and address these inefficiencies, to try and help early stage or early growth technology businesses scale aggressively or quite successfully, and also for us to be a resource for corporations and large enterprise to access innovation, which they otherwise wouldn't be able to do.
And you have certain verticals that you focus on. Could you describe those to us?
Yeah, sure. So we have launched our pilot calls this year, and they're in the verticals, the telco space and the fintech space at the moment. We've also had a call in artificial intelligence, but those are the three areas that we're focusing on to start with.
Okay, wonderful. And the Delaware Group, Luis, please tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, Delaware is a company that has been in the market for the last 15 years. We are a technological company, very oriented to the business, to the customers, and the idea for us is to provide the customer solutions that are going to increase their revenues. So the products and services that we have and that we have implemented in our customers are focusing on that specific role, which is increase the revenues. That's why one of the business models that we have is a revenue share, which is we are providing those services, they're going to increase their revenues and they're going to share a piece of those revenues for us.
So you provide free services and you do a rev share?
Yeah.
Okay, so now why are you guys working together?
Okay, the idea for us is to help these people to commercialize the products and services that are going to have within our customer database.
Okay, and your customer base, are they largely telco companies?
Yeah, we're focusing as GAI in the telco space and banks and insurance companies as well.
Okay, so you're working together in both those sectors. And from your perspective?
Yeah, so I guess from our perspective, as Luis was talking about his business's experience, I mean, they've been doing this for a number of years. And for us, it's great to have a partner on board like this that really helps us with the enablement of introducing technology businesses to larger enterprises, because they've done it before. They understand what's required from both parties to really start working together and creating value from the get-go, because it can be quite a challenge. I mean, the intent is always positive when we pitch this idea to corporations and technology businesses, but there's a certain type of approach to make sure that we are not wasting time and resources to really get traction.
So in fact, let's talk about what the requirements are to be part of your program. First, to be part of your venture capital program, you're going to see that there's another interview that we did with some of the companies from that. What did they need to do? Where did they need to be in order to enter your venture capital program? And then I want to hear about from you as well.
And that's a great question, because and this is also an opportunity for us to just distinguish ourselves from some of the startup incubators that exist out there, which are very much if you have an idea and you're a really early stage startup, you can pitch to be in that. The resources you get are pretty fixed in terms of funding, time, and resources. For us, we kind of use a proxy that you have to have had a capital raise, so typically a Series A. That gives us a screen for businesses that have more traction. They have a team. They're not looking for the same sort of things that an early stage startup would be, which are perhaps just funding and offices. So these are teams that if we introduce them to corporates where there's a real need or there's a great opportunity to apply the technology and make some great benefits and revenue creation, that they'll have the ability and capacity to be able to do this. So for us, that's what we use as our kind of screen. We're looking for early growth technology businesses that have typically already had a Series A funding round, so they have the traction to be able to proceed.
And I notice they seem to usually have customers. Is that true? Do they have at least the first customer or some prototypes that are in the field getting some testing?
Yes, exactly. Again, that validates their whole business model to show that there is revenue generation potential over here, and that we are through the first stage of screening. The other reason why I think it's quite important for us to try and appeal to the businesses that have already done a capital raising round is that they've already had validation from meeting certain milestones from their investor base as well. So it gives us, again, more credibility, and also the corporate and large enterprise partners that we're working with, it adds a layer of credibility to who they're going to be working with and why they should be interacting with businesses like this.
And then, Luis, for you to integrate these solutions into these larger corporations, what do these startups or these new companies need to have in place in order to be viable for actual integration?
So the main idea and the requirements from the corporates is that, as others were saying, there is a valid implementation already, because the customers are always looking for, okay, who is going to be the first one that is going to implement this solution? When you have innovation and when you have new solutions, you don't want to be the first one. Okay, so you want to have proven that somebody else has been using that service. Now, when you're talking about revenue share, what is important to have very clear is that how is that revenue going to be measured? Because, you were talking about free services. They are really not a free service. There is a lot of investment, and there is a lot of work behind that, but you need to integrate that within the structure of the corporate. Mm-hmm. And you need to make sure that you can measure the way that you are going to be generating the revenue for the customer. And then it's going to be easier to share that revenue, to calculate what is the piece for each of them.
Okay. So here we've been focusing here at TIA. You spoke to the board of directors yesterday. Why was it important for you to come and speak to them? What was the message that you were trying to bring to them? Okay.
Well, for us, quite simply, it's getting the message out there that GAI exists, or Global Actionable Innovation. We would like to believe quite a new niche within the innovation ecosystem, which hasn't really been offered before. You have corporate venturing arms within corporations, but by the very definition of how they're structured, they're not as innovative as I would say they can be, because they're not open to a wider audience to tap into sort of lots of innovation. So we're putting ourselves out there to say, have a conversation with us. We have a great deal flow, lots of experience. We've got a network of advisory board members that span the globe that can access relevant technologies for the businesses. So we can be your eyes and ears for innovation, and that's the kind of message that we were trying to come across with. Mm-hmm. So it's really as simple as that. We're another channel for large enterprise to access innovation, to continue to iterate their business.
So both of you, and we'll start again with you, Adarsh, what do you see happening in the telecommunications industry today? It sounds like you think that maybe there's some gap there. So what's going on? What do you see? What are some trends that you're noticing that need to be paying attention to that is giving you this opening to bring this kind of solution?
Okay. I think Luis will have some great input here, so I'm looking forward to hearing what he says as well. But from my perspective, I've worked with telco operators in the past in one of my other previous businesses, so I also have some experience of what some of the challenges are faced. So I would say that if we're talking quite broadly, regulation is a massive issue. It's a massive distraction for a lot of telco operators that they have to focus on. Capacity issues. You've got a huge move to data, and I think a lot of telco operators are scrambling to try and ensure that they have the right amount of capacity going forward. It's very expensive. They then have legacy systems, which I think can prove a challenge. I mean, Lewis spoke briefly about being able to measure where we move the dial from in terms of how much value we're creating, and I think that by its very nature today, we have some archaic systems within some of the telco operators, which I think is a challenge for them. And the real challenge from my perspective is the fact that they've got a huge amount of data, more so than a lot of the current day technology darlings that we hear about, Google and Facebook, who are harnessing lots of customer data. The telco operators, I think, have a massive resource in that data, but the systems that they have around them and the challenges are hindering their ability to leverage off that massive resource that they have, I think. So those are a couple of examples. I mean, one of the broader macro trends, I think, which I see as a problem, maybe as an outsider to the telco space, is the fact that you've got Wi-Fi constellations from Facebook and Google, which I think long-term will be very disruptive to these mobile operators.
And Luis, what are your thoughts?
Okay, this is a very interesting question, and there's been a lot of discussion about this. The telecoms are trying to, get into some other businesses, while, under my point of view, I've been working with the telecoms for the last 20 years, okay? And the main thing that we need from a telecom is the connectivity. I mean, without connectivity, we are not using Facebook, we are not using Twitter, I mean, we are not able to do
Internet
anything.
is not going to happen. Nothing's going to happen.
Nothing is going to happen. So it's true that there is so many data that the telecoms are having, like the banks and the insurance companies. They are not being able to use that data in terms of how to approach their customers, how to identify, how to know what their customer really needs. But the basics, if we go back to the basics, I mean, connectivity, I think, is the main goal for all the telecom companies in order for everybody else to be able to be connected. Once you are connected, then you can start analyzing data, big data, and all that stuff. But connectivity is the main target for them. Okay. Without connectivity, we're not going to be able to do anything, and the OTTs are not going to be able to do anything.
Right, and then the question is, how do you build value on top of that connectivity? For them, I would think that that's the case. Is that correct?
Yeah,
definitely. Otherwise, I think the risk is that a telco operator gets considered as a utility by just providing that service, and I think that's the struggle they're finding from the OTT offerings, which are taking a lot of value away from them. So there are lots of solutions that we're trying to introduce that bring the value back into the telco operators' sort of core market, and absolutely, very important point.
So, what do you see as a final wrap up? Very quickly, the future of telecommunications and your role in it. What do you see? Adarsh, what do you think?
I would say that the future is being open to new ideas, open to new partners and collaborations. I think that's the way the world is working on creating value and delivering innovation. And that's where we're placed, is to be that go-between or the facilitator to help enable technology businesses and large corporates in the telco space to work together and create value.
Luis?
Yeah, to me the message is very similar. I mean, the telecom companies, they should focus on being able to have the right connectivity for everybody else, and then build an ecosystem of partners that are focused on bringing all those new technologies, all that innovation in terms of providing value added to these customers, but with the basics of build the connectivity for everybody.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you.